Hi guys, for today's video I'm doing some graphite portraits on Strathmore 300 series tone tan paper. That's a lot to say, jeez. Anyway, so for several videos I've been saying how I didn't want my portraits to look just like the reference photo, or how I didn't want it to be, it didn't really matter to me if it was a likeness. And for this sketchbook spread, it's the opposite. I was actively going for everything to have a likeness and to be very similar to the reference photo, because the whole point of this was to practice my proportions, the lighting, the shading, and just the values in general, making sure that they pop off the page and it doesn't look so flat. I've also been noticing that I've kind of been in a little rut of putting kind of like the same features on all my portraits, and it's not even a direction that I meant to go into, and I wasn't really happy with it. So I figured if I do some studies, it might help me kind of nudge me back in the direction that I did want to go into. And I really enjoy drawing stylized faces. I don't want to stop doing that or turn every drawing back into a, photorealistic portrait. But I do think some realism studies can help me understand the thing that I'm stylizing more. And my main question would be, how can I simplify something if I don't understand it first? I'm trying to learn what I want to exaggerate or simplify or leave out. And I also want to pay attention to what I naturally enjoy drawing. For instance, the little divot in the corner of the mouth. I like that. I also really enjoy drawing the shadows under the eyes, even though it kind of makes them look a little bit more tired, but I'm okay with that. And as I'm drawing, I'm also asking myself, what shapes are catching my attention? What features am I spending the most time on? Because that's going to tell you either what you're struggling with or what you really enjoy. And just like the shadows under the eyes, what other kind of shadows do I like? I also really enjoy drawing a shadow under the chin. I think that really makes the chin pop out and look three-dimensional instead of just going from chin to neck. And also, what makes a portrait feel like my drawing? I know that style isn't really important, and the more that you draw, it's going to come to you naturally. But a big part of continuing to draw like me is finding out what I enjoy putting in every drawing. And I'm also trying to find a practice routine that actually works for me. I have a lot of things that I want to improve, like portraits and stylization, shading, different materials, even finished pieces. I want to get more finished pieces out there. Like, I don't just want to be doing stuff that lives in my sketchbook forever. I've been wanting to get stuff out there so I can start making prints and, physical, tangible products from my art. Um, I don't know if I've mentioned it in the last couple of videos, but one of my big goals is to have my art on Strathmore paper. And I don't know if they know it yet, but it's going to happen. I'm putting it out there in the universe. Another thing that's been helping me out a lot is I stop wasting time looking for reference photos. There's a lot of times where I can spend hours looking at reference photos instead of actually drawing, and it just hit me lately that that's a lot of time that I could be spending drawing and actually improving. So it sounds simple, but I really tried to just spend about 10-15 minutes looking at, browsing Pinterest, and then the rest of the time I pick 3 or 4 images and I just go for it no matter what they are. If I start drawing it and I don't like it, I just keep going. And it sounds simple enough, but it really has made a huge difference. Another thing that's really helpful for me, at least, is when I'm trying to practice like tones and volumes and shapes, just keeping everything simple. Like this one, I'm just using one mechanical pencil with 2B Faber-Castell lead. This is my favorite lead to use. It gets really dark, but it's also only a 0.5, so it's pretty sharp, and you can get really, really nice dark details without having to stress about like sharpening or, which lead you have. It does everything really well, and this paper is smooth enough to where you can use the blending stump and it's not too grainy or gritty. It's just one of my favorite ways to practice. Another thing that is helping me is not like being too attached to these sketches either. I used to feel a lot of pressure, like every sketch had to be perfect and just so, and if it wasn't, then I wasn't doing a good enough job. Instead of just treating sketches as a sketch, not every sketch has to be a finished work of art. And like right here, I started erasing the eyes because they didn't really look like they were looking in the same direction. And so when I do that, I try to use a blending stump to softly get an idea of where I want the outlines and stuff to be. It just kind of makes it so it doesn't, I don't have to do even more erasing to get the eyes looking right. And that's another thing I've really noticed as well. I'm not afraid to erase the eyes anymore. It used to be something where if I didn't get it right the first time, I just restarted my drawing. And now I know that I can make it look right no matter what. I know it might be kind of hard to see because I've got it in a pencil extender, but the pencil that I'm using to get the white highlights is just a Caran d'Ache Luminance white. I've also used a Prismacolor white. I just grabbed that one because it was already in my pencil extender. It's right on my desk. I didn't have to go looking for the Prismacolor one. They both work great. As long as you have a nice wax-based white colored pencil, it pops really, really beautifully on this paper. This third portrait probably ended up being my favorite out of the entire spread, just because I've really been enjoying drawing this angle of portrait lately. It's challenging. Like, I usually draw the 3/4 or like the straight on, and I can draw those pretty well, but with her head angled kind of back and up, it really kind of like forces you to look at where the features actually are versus where you kind of think they are. For instance, her ears are lower, down more towards her jaw, and her nose is up higher, way higher than it would sit if she was looking like straight ahead. Just basic anatomy kind of stuff. It's difficult to all get it in one sketch session, but that's what I'm working on. I keep a little notepad next to me when I'm drawing, and I'm just trying to like go through this little checklist of things that I want to work on in each of my sketches, like facial planes and shadows, and remembering to put reflected light in, because that's another thing that really helps with form, is showing where different light is hitting different parts of the face. And with each of these portraits, I chose reference photos that were very clearly showing shadows and light. Like I said, that really helps out with the anatomy and really shows you where things are more than a washed out, over photoshopped model picture. So another part that's pretty crucial to my graphite drawings are using blending stumps. And I have a big giant one that's like 20 years old. That's my favorite. But then I have this smaller one that I use for smaller drawings and getting in the finer details. And one of the things I really like to do is get like a wash of graphite down and then kind of blend it out with the blending stump. That there's two reasons I'm doing this. Number one, it's to kind of get rid of like messy marks and just kind of make it all a little bit more even. I'm not really trying to blend it from, like the graphite to nothing, because I want to do that with my pencil, but I'm just more so trying to take away from any distracting marks that there might be, or to quickly get a big tone down because it's a bigger surface than my pencil, right? So like the pencil is really sharp, and your blending stump, you can kind of angle it in a way that it's putting down a lot of tone really quickly. And then number two, as long as you're not pressing hard with any of this, like you don't press hard with your pencil, but you're also not pushing hard with the blending stump. As long as you're not pushing hard, you will be able to use either the kneaded eraser, or I have this little Tombow mono eraser, that little mechanical pencil looking eraser, and you can kind of like carve out parts that you needed to lighten back up. And I like to take an X-Acto knife and kind of just like take off a tiny little sliver off the end of it, and that like sharpens it up, and I can really pull out sharp like fine details like a hair or like whiskers, or small little wrinkles in the skin. It depends on how detailed you really want to get. But I also use a kneaded eraser to lift up tone, and you can't really do that if you're pushing hard. And also when I'm blending, I'm trying to keep in mind and remind myself that I don't want to smooth everything out. Like the whole goal of using the blending stump isn't actually to blend everything and smooth everything out to where it's smooth and glossy and perfect. I actually really like the more human, sketchy vibe lately. I think right now everything is oversaturated with smooth, polished AI blurry crap, and I don't want to put more of that. I really enjoy the textures and the mistakes and the pencil marks. That's very appealing to me, and I want to put more of that out there. And AI just so far can't seem to replicate that. On this one, I did, however, bring it a little bit too dark on that right side. I was trying to keep everything in shadow on the left side. In the reference photo, it kind of looks like that part of the cheek might be in shadow, but I think it was just overwhelming the picture and making her look more like she had a dirty face than shadow. So I just kind of like lifted that up a little bit. I didn't want it gone completely because obviously there is some shadow there on the face. On this particular portrait, I kind of had like of a harder of a time. The angle of the face was really weird, and also the lighting was quite challenging. And it's not, I'm not upset about it, or I don't hate it or anything. It just was a little bit more challenging, and I'm not 100% sure that I nailed it, but I just kept trying to remind myself to really focus on the planes of the face, like where the light was hitting and the shadows hitting. I think I'm gonna have to do another study with like an Ansari head. I think that's what it's called. It's that like a sculpted head of basically just showing you, well, a simplified version of all the planes of the face. This is probably my favorite sketchbook spread that I've done in a while. It seems like every single video, my drawing skills, I can really see a definite improvement. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it helped you in any way, it would help me out so much if you could hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.